Chris Duffin at the Kabuki Lab, sitting down again with Reese Hoffa and Corey Davis. So soon to be four-time Olympian Reese Hoffa, right?
That's right.
Yep. And his head strength trainer Corey. And we've also got Brandon here from our Kabuki strength coaching staff. So Brandon does a lot of our in-depth data analysis and programming for us. And one of the things that thought would be fun to talk about is basically using velocity devices for auto-regulation. I know that you guys do it and we do it, so I thought we'd spend a little bit talking about what we're doing, and then you guys could share how you're applying it in basically throwing power sports. So obviously the application is going to be a little bit differently, but we've got squat and science unit here, which I wanted to show you guys because I know you're using another device.
Yes.
We don't need to talk about that device's name.
Yes. Okay.
So this is the squats and science unit, one of the first 100 made. So it's it's a tethered unit. This is the first low-cost tethered unit to hit the market. So the tethered units have the accuracy that we want, since the gyroscope technology just isn't at that level yet. I think it will be, and that's where the industry will end up.
Yeah.
But right now it doesn't provide the quality that we want. So you can actually begin our set. There's our data, and we can look at it a bunch of different ways. You can click through. We did multiple reps, and you can also click through and see the different reps. And then you can select what you want to view. Here right now we're looking at peak velocity and meters per second. So pretty cool device, and right now we're just reserving them for basically our clientele that we work with.
Absolutely.
But this is something that we're working with the folks at Squats and Science with to come to market at a price point that makes sense for an individual user. And that's you're using something pretty similar.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, with the gyroscopic technology, which is fine, but like you're talking about, not as accurate as something like that. Yep. But then you go to the high-end tethered models, and they are way too expensive.
I've got a couple GymAwares, and they run like $2,200 a piece. So the Tendo unit's a little less, but it's like 1980s technology.
Yeah,
like it's pretty ridiculous. So, so this is pretty cool to get something to market that's in that price point. And I think this is where the industry's heading.
Yeah.
Because the auto regulation stuff is pretty damn cool, and the ability of what you're able to do with it. And Brandon, I'll let you kind of talk about a little bit about the profiling that we're doing and how we employ that for auto regulation principles in our our decision making process.
Yeah. So the this unit and all velocity measurements are the only way to objectively auto-regulate training. There's subjective methods, RPE, reps in reserve, and other things that ask a question. This is the only one that gives you a definitive answer without asking that question. Now, it's not to say that it's not valuable to also ask, how was it, how'd it go? But this one allows you to really see just the actual data. We use this with all of our online clientele. And the process of using that is first through profiling them. So we know that not all athletes can move different percentages of their 1 rep max at the same speed. 80% for one lifter might move at a different rate as 80% for another lifter, and so on. And so we attempt to actually define that range and what those differences are. Not to say to compare them to lifters, though that might be something that would be interesting to do in the future. But when we want to write a completely customized training and really know what we're doing when we're doing it, we need to define the actual lifter's profile. We can do that by mapping a series of tests, ranging from 30% to 70%, even working up to a 1 rep max, and then use a linear regression to fill in some of the missing spots there. So in our training, we can use percentages still as the main structural component of our training plans. And then we can follow that with the corresponding velocity to say, maybe you're not super recovered one day, maybe your training's actually going a little better, maybe we set your training maxes too low, maybe we set them too high. This kind of self-corrects that, assuming that the lifter is actually paying attention to it. We can also use this without the use of percentages. We can just give the velocity. In my opinion, it's still a good idea to know that percentage. Although it's not probably necessary to profile all of the lifts. For team sport athletes or power athletes, we can say that absolute strength is from this velocity to this velocity. Pure power training is from this velocity to this velocity, and so forth. And that's some of the greatest uses of auto-regulating with velocity.
We were talking at lunch while I was showing these two my mad eating skills.
Yes, it's impressive. It was a good day.
I might have had a few donuts and some milkshakes and a few different meals, but you know, I think
You say a few milkshakes?
no, only one. Only one milkshake today. That was last week. I was going on the multi-milkshake binge.
That's fair.
So we talk about the profiling and stuff, but I think an interesting story is the last meet I did.
Yeah.
And because essentially at any time we can actually project what your max is if we know your profile. So if we know a speed at, if you're a 500-pound squatter and you squat 300 pounds, based on that speed, we can actually tell whether you're good for 495 or 505 or 510 that day. We can forecast that. And so the last meet, I do big weight cuts. And when you do a big weight cut, you have no idea once you recomp where you're going to be at.
Yeah.
But you really don't. It's guesswork. So we did forecasting on my warm-ups, and we knew within 5 pounds what my max was. It was really, really cool.
Yeah,
So we did that with my squatting
Yeah.
and my benching. We didn't do it with my deadlift. Then I did bomb out on the deadlift. So
Coincidence?
I don't know. But it was really cool because we loaded the bar to basically 3 pounds within what my forecasted max was. And everybody says I might have had a pound or two more in me.
Yeah.
And that was it. So
That's
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's a huge advantage for you.
Yeah, and
being
you
able
think
to
about
go into that meet knowing here's the number I
Yeah.
know I can hit, based on training.
And that's not how we necessarily use it, but in essence, in theory, that is actually exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because by setting those guidelines, we're actually tailoring the program based off of where you're at today.
Yeah.
Because we actually know.
Yeah.
But I know you guys. You're not competing in that type of sport, and you've had really good luck with using velocity-based measurements and some auto-regulation as well. So you want to talk about what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We've, as a coach, being in there with the lifter, actually coaching them through, that's really, half of your job is before they get in there that day, coming up with the program and kind of knowing what you want to do. But then the other really important role then is actually watching them lift, watching them move, and saying, okay, today is a great day, let's deviate from that plan a little bit. Or no, today's not that great day, let's kind of throttle back. And in the past, that was always just, you were talking about like the subjective measure, just kind of watching it and saying, yup, that looked good. And you don't even necessarily know what was so good about it. You just kind of have a feeling like, yup, that was great, I'm going to go up a little bit more. So then switching over to some of the speed tracking technology where we know objectively, hey, this is how fast we're moving it. We've used it both, in our workouts to kind of know, iron's hot, let's go ahead and strike today. But also, once we get into the season, we can know moving sub-maximal weights faster is getting a similar stimulus for Reese as lifting a heavier weight without doing as much of the damage. The big thing for Reese is none of the weight room stuff matters. The only thing that matters is on field, like in the ring, how far can you throw that shot?
And we were talking about that earlier, where you were talking about all these other lifters that maybe have bigger leverage advantages because they're taller, they bench press a lot more, they squat a lot more, but you outperform them where it matters.
Well, I think it's important about power output and not just overall strength. We have Christian, who's from Missouri, 630 bencher, and I can outperform him. Now he may, everyone has a great day, and he may have a better PR or whatever, but on a day-to-day basis, going out there and throwing, I can compete with someone that is way stronger than me. And within my sport, I'm definitely not the strongest athlete. And there are a lot more athletes that are way stronger than me, but it's not strength. I can still outperform them and still be ranked very, very high in the world because it's not about overall strength, it's just about how I'm executing power.
Yeah.
Stronger in terms of like their max weights.
Max
are heavier
weights,
than
yes.
yours, but strength in terms of like how quickly you can display that power, is really what you're looking for. So that's really how we've used it. is, hey, you know, grinding out a 520 bench isn't as helpful and sports specific for him as, you know, throwing 475 off of his chest might be, or 415 even.
Yep.
You know, we can
Yes.
go a lot lighter.
And having those real measures can really help you dial that in.
Absolutely.
Because there could be a big difference between 475 and 490.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden you're outside of that range.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are probably familiar with Dr. Brian Mann, who's been one of the leading researchers in velocity. And he said something similar. He was, I believe, he was working with football players, and you know, the intention was the day to work power, right? And they were solely basing their training off percentages. And once they started applying the velocity, he was like, you know, we're not even close, you know, to the measurements. So
Yeah,
it's,
absolutely.
It's very helpful, especially for athletes who are not just strength athletes, to know where they're at.
And
I agree.
one last point on that would be when I'm getting off a plane 16 hours from Doha, getting home and trying to figure out, okay, what is the amount of weight I need to put on the bar and still stay within a certain strength range. That has been huge. Because, you know, for me, it's I'll go travel somewhere 16 hours and I have 2 weeks, or I say I have a week to get some kind of lift in to get my central nervous system ready to go for another meet that's another week down the road that's at a high, that I got to perform at a high level. I don't want to come back and lift a ton of weight or lift outside of my strength range, I guess, in a way, and hurt my performance for the next meet. This is kind of the check and balance to that. Come in, see where I'm at, see, okay, how much can I put on the bar today and still get the most out of it. It's been huge.
And it happens before the workout starts.
Yes.
You know, I think that's something you mentioned at lunchtime. Was like it is a prescriptive thing for that workout that day.
That day.
You know, which just makes it, you know, it's kind of too late to wake up the next day and say, "Yep, that workout yesterday was too hard."
Yeah.
You know, we've already wasted that training day, which for, you know, a professional athlete is a huge, huge mistake.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
that's
really useful.
to me. It's got to be. You know, I refer back to my background in, you know, engineering and business, where people use statistical process control, and a lot of people just analyze data, and it's not the most useful. It's only useful when it's driving a decision right now. What do I do today? Do I change my sets? Do I change my reps? Do I change my weight load? If you're looking at it after fact, it's done. It's done, and you're helping, you know, plan your next. It can help with, you know, your thought process and planning your next cycle.
Yeah.
But you could make the same mistakes on the next cycle. So that's the big takeaway for me is like it has to be driving action, not just collecting information that goes, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's great to be a data nerd. I'm a data nerd myself. Brandon, you a data nerd?
Yeah.
You're a data nerd. But
Got to make a decision from it.
But at some point you've got to make decisions. Right now, what do you just got off the plane? Where are you at? What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yep.
And sometimes you get off the plane and fine. Like coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, it's not going to have as much of an effect of coming from Germany after doing a track meet and only coming off 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Where am I going to be at? Because, you know, you've got to get the body moving. Just doing nothing isn't going to be enough.
Yep.
You've got to do something. So I need something real world at that moment when I say, hey, Corey, how much weight should I put on here? And we'll look at it and say, okay, take it easier because maybe before we left we did a heavy single somewhere because we were ready at that time, and I haven't recovered enough when I got off that plane.
Yeah.
So
So good. I mean, it's really interesting. You guys are applying a little bit different, but you know, it's incredibly valuable tool. And like I said, this is why we're trying to work with these folks on getting something to the market, because we really believe in, you know, having a good quality tool. Because what happens when you come to rely on it and then all of a sudden your device doesn't work or it's missing data or whatever, it's kind of frustrating because
Yes.
that's your routine, right?
Yes.
And you're like, I need that info because I'm relying on it. This is how I operate now. And so you want good quality information, and you
Yeah, absolutely.
and-
Once you start relying on it, you know, that's part of our decision making, you know, process is having that feedback of bar speed.
Yep.
So using, you know, products from the past where it wasn't as reliable, you know, or a little bit more finicky.
It's still better than I mean, we used them for quite a while.
Yeah.
Some of the other units on the market.
Yeah.
And so it's not a bash on that.
Yeah,
but we think
absolutely.
in the light of who Kabuki Strength is, which is we want to continually be better. We want to have the best tools out there, and we're not willing to accept something that doesn't meet our standards that gets by. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good. I enjoyed the discussion. So,
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yep. All right. Reese, Corey, Brandon, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.